Meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item is the consent agenda, and the recommended action is approve the following items which are included in the consent agenda. We have 5A, the minutes from the May 14th meeting, 5B, the minutes from the May 23rd meeting, 6L, which is CSEA chairperson resignation extension, 7A, which is the donation acceptance, 7B, equipment purchase resolution, 7C, resolution authorizing village police to issue tickets/summonses on school property, and 7E, special education. Is everybody okay with the consent agenda? If so, may I have a motion, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Colleen. A second.
Yes.
Thank you, Jody. Any discussion? 45 minutes worth of material. Please vote. I have 5-4-0 against, the motion passes. Next on the agenda is for the good of the cause. This is a time where Board of Education encourages public participation on school-related matters. We allow for a period not exceeding 30 minutes set aside by each board meeting. I see we have people here, so guests, I should say, I'm sorry. Is anybody interested in addressing the board?
Well, I had chose to attend today because in our school newsletter, I saw that there was going to be a review of disciplinary policy, and we had an experience this spring that was just kind of an unfortunate turn of events that I had spoken with Dr. Catania about at the time about, you know, I had given you a letter about the things that I didn't think necessarily went very smoothly, and, you know, it was just, for my own daughter, it was a really negative experience because of a misidentification, and our family has really been struggling to rebuild some of the trust that was broken by that experience. And I know mistakes happen everywhere. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, I read that whole policy that's being, I guess, this open for comment today, from what I understand.
The next board meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry, it didn't say a date, I assumed.
Yeah, it's June 18th.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, that's fine, yeah. The code of conduct here, yes.
Forgive me for using the wrong term. So I felt like there were some specific things that I addressed about how that was handled that I was hoping that perhaps that feedback could be considered when looking at those things, just because it was just really unfortunate how that all happened. I don't know if it'd be, I'd rather not bring it up in detail because I provided you with a letter
Sure.
of what the specifics that we struggled with. And
If you would like to review things with me some time between now and the next meeting, I'd be happy to sit down.
okay, great.
Thank you. Anyone else? Sorry for the miscommunication.
No, it happens everywhere. I just felt it was an excellent opportunity for learning from how something doesn't go well, especially if that's something that you're reviewing at this time. So.
Thank you. Thank you. There is nobody else. Report for the board. Reports to the board, future planning presentations, elementary school principal Sonia Franklin is here tonight to present improvement ideas for the coming year.
Sure. As you know, in the past, we've done this process where we work with each of the grade level teams and the special area teams, and that we meet with them in small groups. They meet first together, then we meet with them, Dr. Catania and I, and go through Some basic questions. One is, what have we done well the last year or two? What would we like to see happen in the next year and in the next 5 years, and how is that going to approach and help out the board and district goals? So throughout the year, we've had these meetings, and this is kind of a compilation of the feedback that came from all of those different interest groups within the school itself. So just some highlights, because you've all received the document. I won't bore you with reading through it all. But some highlights that I did want to point out. Some successes that we've had the past couple of years is, every year I've been here, we've kind of had a theme of the year, and it's been nice because it's been growing and they kind of are getting to the point where they expect it. Well, this year's theme was the Be the Nice Kid theme. And I feel like the staff and the students have really done a nice job embracing it. It's part of our PBIS theme. We had t-shirts for every one of the students that says that on the front of it. We had lanyards for the kindergarten students that had that on there, as well as the staff that had play class at elementary school, Be the Nice Kid. And it was part of our monthly ideas or character education as well. And we did some number of activities to recognize our kids that really put this out. And the nice thing about the t-shirts is it was a community-sponsored t-shirts. Different companies helped sponsor these t-shirts as well. So it kind of showed also the way that the community is helping to support that idea. With the community, we've also done a lot of community outreach over the last couple of years. We provide food at different events, such as the pizza that we do at concerts, the snacks during the school home connection meetings. We provide childcare. So trying to eliminate some of those barriers that keeps families from coming into our school, dealing with the meals, dealing with the childcare and that. But not only that, but we've also involved other community organizations in some of our educational components. We've done some activities with Roost, with Elderwood, with North Country Schools, with Northwood Schools, Orta, just a number of organizations that we've really been working with the last couple of years to kind of let our kids know what's out in their community, and let the community know that they're welcome in our school, that we're working together to educate our students. So that's been another area of success. In addition, with all of the talk about mental health these days, we have guidance lessons that are incorporated into our rotational schedule with our specials. So each of the grade levels and homerooms receive regular guidance lessons dealing with mental health, dealing with coping skills, dealing with how to develop friendships, those various issues. So our guidance counselor, Deanna Brown, has been pushing into all of the classrooms for that. We've also been working on our outdoors, let's say. Our nature trail project has really been taking off. Of course, we worked on that last year. We did some more work on that this past weekend to expand it even more. It's used in PE class, it's used in those guidance classes, it's used by teachers themselves that will go out and use that. The current fifth graders that we have, as you know, have developed those signs that we presented to you last year. They're fully implemented in there as you take a walk through it. So we've really kind of let the kids learn more through that experiential learning out there. In addition to that, our playground has been growing. We haven't reached our goal yet, and unfortunately, the longer it takes, the more expensive things get. But we are constantly putting new pieces in, and of course, every time we do that, the kids are very excited. We are always taking bottles and cans back because that's an easy way that the kids really can contribute to that. We've had a couple of kids that have done yard sales and lemonade sales to help sponsor that program as well. The last couple of years, we've had a kindergarten program that we've kind of been working with. Mrs. Uliva was contemplating retirement. We talked her into staying, and she's tried a program the last 2 years and will continue to do so the next year, where we're really taking the kids that we, through the screening process, feel are going to have additional needs. So we've really pushed in supports in there. There's always a second adult in there. Our reading teacher goes in there. Our technology teacher does speech, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and they work with the whole class. So as a result of this, our first grade teachers are seeing less issues coming up through, and the kids better prepared for that reading, that math, that writing, that real strong academics, because we're able to really focus some of our additional skills and support in this. We also, in addition to that extra support, have learning specialists or special education teachers have been consistently working with the teachers the same ones. So they're really developing that teamwork approach and getting to know each other and being able to play off each other in the classroom. So for example, we have Mr. Fenton in 3rd and 4th grade. He's continued to do that. He's continued to work with the same teachers. So there's that relationship that makes that working much more easier. And finally, the last thing I'm going to mention is our STEM program, or our science program, has really been receiving an extra boost. Our science and math, we've been doing a lot more work with, every month we have a math team that meets to go through the curriculum. They've been mapping things out and to seeing where our gaps are, as well as our science. And we've been doing some summer work in science and math as well to really boost up that as we've been trying to push through. I've always felt we've had a strong ELA program, but these are some areas that we've needed some additional support, and we've been working on that support. Now, as far as what we would like to see happening in the next couple of years, we would like to integrate the library and the computer lab. When it was originally designed, it's my understanding that that door was put in so that there could be flow between the two. So we'd really like to look at a way that we can make it a library media center and not just a library. And this is a perfect opportunity to do that. With Tom Dodd's retirement and a new person coming in, those expectations will be easy enough to work with, and work with somebody new to get some new energy in there. With that in mind, we'd also like to have that new person be really truly a technology integration specialist, going into the classrooms and working with the teachers and their curriculums and what they're working on to help support that through technology. Our 3rd grade does a wonderful job at integrating technology through research projects and presentation and that. But our other grades are kind of lacking simply because they don't have that knowledge. So if we can get a technology integration specialist that goes into the classroom and works with whatever curriculum the teacher's already working on, we're getting more bang for our buck that way. We're not recreating a program for technology, but rather we're supporting and we're using more of a project-based learning in the classrooms there. We would like to, since we had such success in the kindergarten, having that classroom that has that intensive support. We do also have a TA that's dedicated solely to kindergarten. I'd like to be able to somehow schedule around that we have a TA that's dedicated to 1st grade ELA and mathematics. Again, hitting those early years, really getting those foundational skills down as they start to build up, so that we can then have everybody starting at that same type of level or the same. One of the last few things I'd like to mention is we are looking to see if we could have a part-time secretary to cover the office from 12 to 2. This 2-hour block is when one of our secretaries, like for example Mrs. Polina, is off at lunch. What we currently do is Lisa Risberger, who works in the CSE office, covers for lunch, which means she covers the door as well. And that is, she doesn't know the students as well. She comes from 2 different doorways over. So if we had somebody that was there during that time, they could sit at the desk, they could cover. We are not, as we know, getting an SRO officer anytime soon. This would be another person that would know all the families and have that consistency of being able to provide security at that front door. In addition to that, we would have this person work on our newsletter and potentially our welcome board. If you walk into our building, you see that there as well. These are jobs that I've kind of taken on and gone through, that this would be something that we could have them do while they're there watching that door. Again, another way to improve communication and improve safety and security in the building. With safety and security, my dream is to offer first aid training for all of our staff at the elementary school. If we have some time to be able to do that during in-service, we would like to do that. And we've got the support of staff members as well, just again, an additional skill to learn. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, our playground equipment gets more and more expensive every year. We're going to continue to work on that goal, but any help that we can get in improving that. We have one big piece that's left. The rest of it, we've got all the peripheries. It's just that one big piece. And the company is willing to split that piece in half for us and do it in two parts and put it in, but that's one of those goals that we're still struggling to reach at. So, are there any questions about any of those or any of the other things I hadn't mentioned? I know you got the list, it was pretty extensive.
Great, good job.
Yeah, great.
What's the approximate cost of that piece of equipment?
We currently, it's $50,000. We currently have 15,000 sitting there. We have, of course, that 25,000 that's promised to us by Elderwood. Elaine, if we get that extra. So we're missing about 35,000 right now, and we would have reached our goal.
And is that from the Adirondack Foundation, have you?
The E-line?
Yeah.
They're separate. They were
Okay.
separate, yeah.
So has the Adirondack Foundation, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Any additional questions?
No,
Thanks.
that's great. I mean,
Great job.
I think that the playground, just, even when you drive by, it's bright, the equipment that you're adding there, and I hear lots of little tidbits. It just seems like there's lots of really fun things going on there, so, I don't know, it just seems last year there's just been a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a great job.
And we did the survey of the students, and it's what the kids wanted. They designed the playground with what they wanted. The best thing was, they designed it very inclusively. A lot of the pieces that we have are built for kids with some special needs. We have some low-tone equipment on there. We have some equipment that is particularly designed with the autistic child in mind, the sensory equipment. So that's what's really neat, is the kids decided that that was really what they wanted, so.
Great, thank you very much.
It's hard to boil down all of those many meetings, discussions, follow-ups into a 10-minute presentation in one document.
Especially when you told me I had to make it quick.
Yeah. I think it was great, the 40 bikes that you had for the children in
Yeah.
there. I mean, just things like that make such a huge difference for some of these children. And I know that Deanna was working on trying to get cross-country equipment, more equipment.
We do, we got some more cross-country
Yeah, I just
equipment.
think those things are wonderful.
Yeah, we got snowshoes, we have the the bikes that we use in PE class.
No, it's great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm gonna go pick up my son from work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the superintendent report. Dr. Catania.
All right. So I thought I'd talk about two things. One of them is I wanted to review the meeting that we held last week regarding the potential SLP mergers. And then the second is I'd like to update you in terms of the kinds of things that are going on. So first, the merger meeting. This was last Tuesday night, May 28th. We joined Saranac Lake's athletic director and superintendent in a public conversation about two new possible SLP teams, one girls hockey and the other being alpine skiing. I want to share with you some things that we discussed. We're already aware that we have SLP programs right now, girls hockey, and lacrosse, this year's lacrosse, second year's girls hockey. So these are our possible additions. Start with alpine skiing. So we did have coaches there from both schools and at least one parent there. And it did raise some major concerns about alpine skiing that frankly we hadn't thought about. We talked about the possibility of merging the two teams. One of the issues was that merging into one team is going to eliminate the only competition the only local competition either team has, which is each other, right? And that's more of a problem because you have a certain number of teams have a certain number of required competitions in order to compete at the state level. So either by merging, either we would eliminate those competitions and not be eligible to compete at the state level, or we would have to participate in competitions that are much farther away from here than our local area. And that would mean sending our teams to, well, you can imagine the different mountains that are out there in upstate New York. And that, of course, would be more travel, more time out of class. And actually, more time out of class was a concern because skiers already do miss a good amount of class, and we're worried about them missing more. A second concern has to do with the number of athletes that would be eligible for the state meet. So right now, the rules are that 3 skiers from each team are eligible. So that means that out of the 2 schools, 6 boys and 6 girls are eligible to participate in the state meet. And that it would of course get cut in half if the 2 teams were to merge. My sense from the conversation was that there's probably more that we would lose from merging than there would be that we would gain. So, and like I said, a lot of that was new information for those of us who had talked about this earlier. The second conversation, which took a lot more time, was about boys hockey. And there were many people participating in this discussion. Karen did, thank you very much. Karen posted notes from that meeting on board docs for you to see. Those are Diane Fox's notes. So I appreciate Diane taking notes during that discussion. Diane's the superintendent in Saranac Lake. So many coaches and parents weighed in on this conversation, and you could read a lot about who said what and that kind of thing. But just some highlights. In Lake Placid, we estimate 10 to 12 returning boys ice hockey players next year, and that's problematic because if we don't merge, then that could mean that we wouldn't have enough players to field the team, or it could mean that we could field the team, but like not this year, but last year, end up forfeiting games when we have student athletes who are sick or injured or ineligible for some other reason. So we see this as a big issue for us. It could mean 10 to 12 players not able to participate if we don't merge. Saranac Lake now has greater numbers, but they are projecting a decrease over time. The youth associations from the two communities have already merged. They merged 4 years ago. So people who are in the youth program, coaches, parents, players, don't see it as too much of a stretch, the potential for merging, because they've already been doing that at the youth level. And of course, they did that also because of low numbers. So, it probably wouldn't be a dramatic change if we were merged at the interscholastic level. Probably one of the bigger concerns that came out about not merging was the safety issue. So what typically has happened with small teams is that that opens the door to younger players joining the varsity team. And that means when it comes to ice hockey, 8th and 9th graders, we even had some 7th graders on the ice before for girls. And 8th and 9th graders, as you can imagine, are typically smaller and not as strong as some of the juniors and seniors. And so, there is the possibility of injury, and just in general, it can be a dangerous situation. So, we see that as a motivating factor for merging. Now, as far as concerns against merging, probably the most significant concern came from parents who are simply worried that it would, by having that many more numbers on one team, combining the two, might cut out some of the players from being able to participate on the team in general. And there were some good conversations about that. A lot of parents were saying that they just see that being a part of the team, even if their son has no playing time or limited playing time. They see that being a part of the team being a real value, real benefit to their son. So we did talk a lot about how a merged team might be able to be more inclusive rather than move quickly towards cuts to the team. And so that was a part of the conversation. We didn't come to any conclusions, but a good conversation. Questions still remain about things like coaches, who would coach, practices, schedules. Certainly with the girls' team, there's the added challenge of, kids from Lake Placid having to take the bus to Saranac Lake for practice, because from Saranac Lake taking the bus. But of course, that's something we've become used to with our SLP program. My sense from this conversation was that there is significant support for the merger, but that we may need to address some of the questions that came up. The Board of Ed is going to get this topic soon. We discussed this briefly in terms of what the process would be. I think that both boards, our board and Saranac Lake Board, may wish to discuss it as board members, and so you may want to do that. We might want to put that on the agenda for the next meeting, but that it'll eventually come to a vote. And we are being urged to make a decision sooner rather than later, because we're not even to summer, but planning for the winter season is well underway. Schedules are being made, and so there's a lot a lot of people waiting to see how it goes here for our merger. So that's the story on the SLP discussion. Any questions about that?
I mean, you were discussing some parents that were bringing up the fact that perhaps their son may not be able to play because they may not be at the caliber that some of these other students are. Does a JV team make sense, or does that really just wipe out the purpose of
Of course,
merging?
it's a really good point, Colleen, because, we did talk about how in other sports we have a JV team to help those players develop. And that in hockey typically we have not. But the purpose of the JV development piece was brought up, and the point was made that, sometimes we may not want an 8th, 9th, and 10th grader, may not be ready to be playing on the varsity team. But over time and with practice, they can certainly develop into players. That's good for the player, that's good for the team and the program. So finding a way to keep them is not just about individual participation, it's also about keeping things going in terms of maintaining the program. So anyway, the term JV came up, the term,
Mites.
what's that?
Mites.
The term mites came up, that was in the notes, you saw
Well,
that.
you would think
Could the
that
mites take over some of that?
Midgets.
Midgets, sorry.
Midget
team.
Midgets,
But
yes.
you would think, though, that the student, rather than keep the bench warm on the varsity team, would rather be playing on the JV team and getting ice time.
Right,
versus-
if there was a JV team, and that's probably the biggest question. If you can't field 2 varsity teams,
Right.
it's probably unlikely you could field a full JV and a full varsity. But there's a way you could be looking at one team as having a JV component to it. I don't know if people would want to call it that, but I think the concept would be something like that. Anyway, again, no great conclusions to that, but I think it was a really important topic to bring up.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I know we'll be talking about that more.
If, would it make sense to bring in Mr. Bennett or both ADs, I guess?
I think certainly our AD, it couldn't hurt to bring in Mr. Bennett. I know, we've been working closely together.
Sure. It has sort of I wouldn't call it a public forum, but all our meetings are public, but
Right.
just put some clarity to
Sure.
the cuts. I know I've been hearing that for 3 or 4 days now.
Yeah.
My kid will just get cut, so I won't have him play anyhow. So having an alternative for that, as well as coach selection, I know that's been a big topic
Yeah.
out there too.
Sure.
But I do agree, though, that sooner than later, because I do hear the chitter chatter that the schedules are being made
They are.
and they need to be, so it's a tough thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the other topic that I wanted to talk about was just upcoming events and activities. So we're approaching the end of the year, and of course we have a number of culminating activities in the works, exciting events to look forward to in the final weeks of school. I'll mention some of those at Lake Placid Elementary School. This is College and Career Week. Our school counselor, you heard her mention before, Deanna Brown, has organized a week of announcements, discussions, and activities for school and home that raise awareness about the different college and career opportunities that exist. Now, we are talking about the elementary school, right? The elementary school, the focus of career development is on helping students learn about themselves, identify their skills and interests, and expose them to opportunities that might be out there. That's the academic description of how we do things. But that being said, the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's still very popular amongst elementary school students, and this is one of those weeks we're going to talk about those kinds of things. So that's College and Career Week. Tomorrow night, the elementary school will be performing, actually, we're going to hear a band and chorus concert. That's at 6:30. Elementary school concert tomorrow night. That's going on. Saturday from 8 to 3 is the Friends Spring Carnival and Silent Auction. That's always an exciting event for all the youngsters in town. Or, of course, very popular. And then next week there'll be an assembly with Jim McCarthy guest to celebrate summer reading. And that is a celebration of the 46er Reading Club, which is again, a big competition. Histories, recovery events, and then be recognized as 46 readers. There's also the annual 5th grade field trip to Ocean Water Park, book shopping day next week, and the At Millen High School, the Model Organization of American States class returned tonight from their big event. It's the Regional Organization of American States. It takes place at Martinsburg State every year. Over the years, many of our students have identified this event on LOAS to be one of the academic highlights of their years, 10 years of school career. It's really relevant, it's highly engaging, it's exciting, and it really brings life to what our students have spent all semester studying. I suspect, and I have not talked to any students who they were getting off the bus at about 5 o'clock this evening, but I suspect the feedback will be similar from what it's been in the past. Very positive. Many thanks to our teacher, Brendan Gotham, and to the Latin American Studies Department at Martinsburg State. That's the organization that organizes this together with our LOAS for our region. It's a terrific opportunity for students throughout. This Thursday, 5th graders and their parents are invited to a 6th grade orientation night, and that's going to coincide right here with the 6th grade science fair. So if you know any 5th graders out there, they and their family are invited to orientation. Always very well attended. Also Thursday night, we'll be celebrating our highest achieving seniors, the Academic Excellence Awards. You've heard that, we've talked about that in our meetings before. That's coming up this Thursday. The guest speaker will be Lowell Bailey. It's a late classic high school class of 1999, four-time Olympian, and first American history won by alcohol. Friday, our girls 4x400 relay team will be competing at the New York State Track Championship. That's big congratulations to those girls. They had an outstanding exceptional race and an outstanding state qualifier race. We're very excited about it. Next week will be the Spring Sports Award ceremony, middle school award breakfast, New Vision's graduation ceremony, and high school award ceremony. It's lots of it. And that's everything. Unless you'd like to. Okay, I'll stop there. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, moving along, information for the board. There is a lot there. 3 NISBA items, the mandated training for new board members. NISBA's board appreciation reception. That's at the Hotel Saranac. If you haven't already, you can sign up online.
They don't have to. No,
And then the NISBA Law, Summer Law Conference, if you're interested in that, please let Karen and myself know. Also included on information is the elementary school trail map, the press release that they just promoted for academic excellence awards. It's also a volleyball letter there, and so on and so forth. So, any questions on information for the board or comments? As I keep saying, there's a lot there. So, if not, we'll move right on to the capital project update.
So I inadvertently left off linking goals,
Yes,
and I added it back on, so we don't forget it.
I skipped right by it. I said, we'll skip it tonight. You want that? Would you like that now?
Please.
Okay. I wouldn't want to discourage Jeff from, now I put you on the spot.
I can just hand my sheet in. It's right here if you'd like.
It's all done. Anybody have anything else?
Yeah, I'll just give you my sheet. There's
Okay.
no reason to go through that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Basically, all I have is what you've already pointed out on the agenda. You bring those forth, which is great, thank you. You do that on purpose, don't you?
Yes.
I have a whole
Okay.
pile of them there, so don't worry about it. We're
Now to the project, capital project update. Who's on?
You want me?
Would you like to take this, Mr. Wood?
I don't know how much you want to say about the auditorium seating. The air monitoring, that's something that's got one proposal, but the whole idea was to kind of only throw it out there to that very company that actually did the testing, so they kind of already know what is expected. So we do have a proposal from Ambient to do our air monitoring when they do come in to do the cleaning. It is required to have an independent party here to just monitor the air to make sure that nothing is escaping that is too harmful. We also got our proposal for the auditorium seating. I had an opportunity to read through that. I liked it on one end because it came in under budget, which was nice. It came in under budget.
Appreciate Callie's sense of humor.
Yes, that's right. Not enough to do the ceiling, but
Right.
it still came in under budget, which is good. And she did raise a couple questions in terms of, or we asked the questions, what to do with our existing seats. And there was talk when we were putting this together about offering them up in terms of sale as a surplus to the public, or through other means like Auction International or something like that to recoup, anything from them that are salvageable.
I think there was community interest too,
Right.
in finding a way to do so in a way that there could be some memorabilia here with their seats.
But I
We haven't
see,
quite figured out all of that.
Right.
but in their proposal, they talk about taking
Yeah,
some of the existing seats.
to Northville, yeah. And so that's part of our feedback was that we still have, we still are developing our plan.
Right.
That might want to put some of those seats to use, not all of them.
Also, the question that was brought up in terms of the nameplates that are currently on the chairs. And again, it was discussed at that time to remove them and create some type of plaque or something. They call it like a giving tree, where it could be displayed in the back or, on one of the walls in the auditorium, displaying everyone that helped finance these seats, so that recognition is still there. I think it's something that we could have our own staff do in terms of the removal of them. They basically, for the most part, are screwed in, and so putting together that plaque and doing that ourselves.
Any other questions? Any update on the front? I see we're still missing some teeth.
Sure. Well, as you know, the weather always, it hasn't necessarily been cooperating. I mean, they're here just about every day that they can in terms of working. If you've noticed that most of the dentals on Peak have been replaced. They are in the process of fixing the initial ledge part that fell off. That really kind of got us looking at this project 2 winters ago when it happened. They're actually working on that. If you look at it, you wouldn't realize that at one point there was a big chunk there because they have to do it on in stages. So it is progressing. They did mention to me the other day, I think last Thursday or Friday, when I was talking to them, that the likelihood of them being 100% complete by graduation is probably unlikely. Not to say that it can't be in a position where it's presentable, but not removing everything and being 100% done. So they are aware of that, and then we're going to be working with them to see about being able to utilize that space for those few hours, removing things that way. We can use that middle section just for graduation. There's talk about obviously additional repairs as it's going on, as they're up there, replacing a piece of ledge as opposed to just repairing it. Because as they told me last week, we can repair it, but there's a crack behind it that it's being attached to, and they guaranteed that it would fall, maybe not this winter, but at least within 2 winters, because it's not really attached to anything. That we should replace the whole piece as opposed to just fixing the front of it.
So when they're replacing those sections, Dan, what are they replacing it with?
My guess is it would be something of the same material.
So it's a limestone material?
Yes,
Oh,
what they said is they would have someone come in, take measurements, and build it,
Mhm.
basically kind of construct it off-site, and then bring it in and replace that section. Because if you look at it, there are sections, they're probably 3 to 4 feet long.
Right.
So replacing one whole section to match what's currently there. And if you look, they've also, where all these joints are on the peaks and stuff like that, you can see where they have cleaned them out for the purpose of recaulking them, because it has deteriorated over the years. So that's part of the process as well.
Thanks.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, on to our extensive list of personnel matters. The first is the teaching staff tenure recommendation. Recommended action is upon the recommendation of the superintendent, Kara Atkinson, who holds a professional certification in French 7 through 12, is hereby granted tenure in the area of foreign language on September 1st, 2019. May I have a motion, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff. Second?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Any discussion?
Kara's our high school French teacher. She's been our international student coordinator, international program coordinator. She's done an excellent job. We're happy that she's going to stay.
5-4-0 against. Congratulations to Kara. The next is another teaching staff tenure recommendation upon the recommendation of Superintendent John Fermonte, who holds a professional certificate in childhood education, grade 1 through 6, is hereby granted tenure in the area of elementary education on September 1st, 2019. May I have a motion, please?
Yes.
Colleen, a second.
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff. Any discussion?
John's been working with children in our district probably for about 15 years as Shipman Youth Center director, as coach, as substitute teacher, and now for the past 4 years as a regular classroom teacher. So he's somebody we know very well, and this will potentially be a nice vote of confidence for him.
Thank you. 6C is teaching staff tenure recommendation upon recommended action. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent, Lisa Marvin, who holds a permanent special education certificate, is hereby granted tenure in the area of special education on September 1st, 2019. May I have a motion, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff. Second.
Yes.
Thank you, Jody. Any comments, Audrey?
Lisa's got a unique ability to work with students with some of the most challenging emotional disabilities that you can see. She does an excellent job addressing those concerns.
Four yeses, one abstention. Motion passes. D, teaching staff tenure recommendation. Recommended action upon the recommendation of Superintendent Carissa Merrihew, who holds a professional license in English language arts 7 through 9, is hereby granted tenure in the area of English language arts on October 3rd, 2019. May I have a motion, please?
It's 7 through 12.
What did I say?
9.
7 through 12, I apologize. Jeff, did you give the
That was
motion?
Dan. I'll second.
Who did the first?
Oh, sorry.
Any comments on Carissa?
In addition to being a breath of fresh air, what she's brought to us, probably the most significant thing is the ability to create and build upon an interdisciplinary block in grade 9. And that's something we did not have before. So thanks to Carissa, she and Jeanette Duke, working together, have created a great experience for kids in those two subjects.
6E is another teaching staff tenure recommendation upon recommendation of Superintendent Rebecca Filion, who holds an initial certification in visual arts, is hereby granted tenure in the area of art education, granted on December 20th, 2019. May I have a motion, please?
Yes.
Colleen, a second.
Yes.
Dan. Discussion, comments?
You know, when, I guess this is my role tonight.
You have the insight,
when-
man.
Yeah, when Rebecca came here, I think she thought that she died and went to heaven by coming to Lake Placid Elementary School. And you don't know what you have until you've been somewhere else, and Rebecca has been elsewhere in the Ithaca City Schools. She was an itinerant teacher, teaching in a number of different schools for short periods of time. She wasn't even full-time, but she taught in multiple schools. And she came to Lake Placid, where we offer art to every kid, K through 5. And she's done an excellent job maintaining and growing that program. So just really pleased that Rebecca is with us, and I believe here to stay. She and her family, including her 2 twins. If you remember, the reason for the later date on her tenure is because she was out having twins on maternity leave. So her tenure won't begin until that later date, December 20th.
Thank you. 6F is another teaching staff tenure recommendation. Upon the action, recommended action upon the recommendation of Superintendent Brian Van Nordstrom, who holds a professional certification in physical education, is hereby granted tenure in the area of physical education on September 1st, 2019. Have a motion, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jeff. Dr. Catania.
In the last 4 years, Brian's made himself a very important player at the elementary school, but also in the community athletic program. So Brian has been, he's become now a fixture in the classroom, the physical education classroom at the elementary school. He's also been our boys basketball coach. He's coached some other modified teams, and he's working with the youth program. So he's really making an impact here amongst our kids.
Thank you. And 6G is the final tenure recommendation. This is for a teaching assistant. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent, Tina Stubbs, who holds a level 3 teaching assistant certification, is hereby granted tenure in the area of teaching assistant on September 1st, 2019. May I have a motion, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Colleen. Second?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan.
Tina came to us as a grandmother and starting a new career with us. She exudes youth, energy, and a can-do attitude. She works with everybody and anybody, and she does a great job. We do have her as a one-to-one TA, and she's been a lifeline for the student that she works with. So really glad to have her.
Just want to point out that I know there's a lot of those, but even though we've gotten to know these people in executive session for the tenure review, it's important that we recognize these teachers and teaching assistants for their great accomplishments. So that's why we just didn't put them all on the consent agenda. I know there were quite a few questions regarding that. So thank you for your patience. Teaching staff appointment is next. Personnel matters. Recommended action, be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby appoints Amy Strack to a probationary appointment as a math teacher in the middle high school, replacing Tammy Casey, in the math tenure area effective September 1st, 2019 for a 4-year term tentatively scheduled to conclude on August 31st, 2023, contingent upon her completion of the probationary term, having received composite or overall APPR ratings of either effective or highly effective in at least 3 of the 4 preceding years, and a rating higher than ineffective in the conclusion of the 2019-2020 school year. For the 2019-2020 school year, the salary will be $55,553, step 12, masters plus 48, of the Lake Placid Education Association negotiated agreement effective July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2020. May I have a motion, please?
Yes.
Jeff, second.
Yes.
Colleen. All of that makes sense to everybody? Okay. Any comments, questions?
Ms. Jackson, experienced math teacher with deep roots in our community. She grew up in Lake Placid. She graduated from Lake Placid High School. She was an outstanding student here. She went on to Villanova and eventually graduated at the University of Vermont. Got her master's degree at Potsdam. She's been teaching for a number of years at Saranac Lake. And she's coming home, yeah, and we're really glad to have her.
I do always agree. It's wonderful when you have an alumnus come back that is really qualified and knows our community and the kids. I think it's great. It's exciting.
Thank you. 5-4-0 against. Next is 6I, recommended action be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby appoints Samuel Baker to a probationary appointment as a science teacher in middle and high school in the science tenure area effective September 1st, 2019, for a 4-year term tentatively scheduled to conclude on August 31st, 2023, contingent upon his completion of the probationary term and having received composite or overall APPR ratings of either effective or highly effective in at least 3 of the 4 preceding years, and a rating higher than ineffective at the conclusion of the 2019-2020 school year. For the 2019-2020 school year, the salary will be $44,014, step 1 of the Lake Placid Education Association negotiated agreement from July 1st, 2017, expiring on June 30th, 2020. May I have a motion to accept Samuel Baker, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Second.
Yes.
Does he have to still get his master's degree?
You will have to, yes.
Did we have a first and a second?
Yes, Dan and Jody.
Sorry.
Sam's a young, passionate, enthusiastic teacher. He's getting his degree from Oswego, geology and teaching. I think the kids are going to all love him.
And wasn't Mr. Lepek a geologist as well? wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Motion passes 5-4-0 against. Moving along to J, teaching assistant appointment. Recommended action, be it resolved upon recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Education hereby appoints Cameron Shipman to the position of teaching assistant in the teaching assistant tenure area for a probationary period of 4 years, commencing on September 1st, 2019, and ending on August 31st, 2023. Certification held, level 1 teaching assistant salary for the 2019-2020 school year is step 2, level 1, which is $25,411 of the Lake Placid Education Association negotiated agreement from July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2020. Have a motion on Cameron Shipman, please.
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff. A second.
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Discussion.
Ms. Shipman has made herself invaluable here. This is one of those appointments where the candidate earned her way. He did a great job of redeeming himself last year, long-term himself this year. She has made herself somebody that we see.
6K, I'm sorry, motion passes 5-4-0 against. K, 6K is teaching assistant appointment, recommended action, be it resolved upon recommendation of the superintendent. The Board of Education hereby appoints Dave Tilsley to the position of teaching assistant in the teaching assistant tenure area for a probationary period of 4 years, commencing on September 1st, 2019, and ending on August 31st, 2023. Certification held, permanent physical education. Salary for the 2019-2020 school year is step 11, level 3, $29,773 of the Lake Placid Education Association negotiated agreement, effective July 1st, 2017, expiring on June 30th, 2020. I have a motion for Dave Tilsley, please.
Yes.
Thank you, Colleen. A second.
Yes.
Thank you, Jody. Any discussion on Mr. Tilsley?
Mr. Tilsley is a retiree who is enthusiastic, I would say beyond enthusiastic, about coming back into the school and working with kids in this role. He's been substituting for us per diem, and then we hired him on as a long-term sub for these last few weeks, replacing Mariana, I believe it's Stacia, and he's undergone a renewal that he wants to continue, and we think it's a great deal for him, and we think it's a great deal for us, because we have an experienced, enthusiastic teacher coming in this teaching assistant role. I think it's great.
Motion passes 5-4-0 against. At the conclusion of, well, there is an L, which is CSEA Chairperson Resignation Extension, which is on the consent agenda. But special thanks to Dr. Catania and Karen and all the committees that are working tirelessly on all these. Anytime I stop by here, they're in this room interviewing individuals. We had a lot of retirements, so thank you for all your hard work. Moving on to additional action items, donation acceptance was on the consent agenda, as was the equipment purchase resolution, as was the resolution authorizing village police to issue tickets. D is the approval of agreement with North Country School regarding the composter. The recommended action is, whereas North Country School and Camp Treetops has provided an agreement with regards to the high-flow drum composter being placed on Lake Placid Central School property at the Ship and Youth Center, whereas Lake Placid Central School Board of Education wishes to enter into such agreement with North Country School and Camp Treetops. Now therefore, after reviewing the agreement, the Board of Education authorizes the president to sign such agreement with North Country School and Camp Treetops. May I have a motion, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Colleen. And a second?
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff. Hope you all got it. Took the opportunity to look over the agreement. Are there any questions, comments on it?
I mean, other than Roger's comments on that, just there are a few things to work out, but
There are things
that's
to
good.
work out.
Obviously, it's a new project, so.
And you need to know that.
Yeah.
You know, this is a work in progress. There are some pieces to this project we don't know
Right.
how hard it will be to implement. We don't know what the financial cost will be. We were talking today about the possibility that it's going to take some of our employees some time to contribute to this effort. That's time that is, you know, out of their daily job. So there are some pieces of this that, you know, we want to make sure are on the table and that people understand. It's certainly got great potential, and I know that it's got a lot of enthusiasm behind it. It fits really nicely in with the sustainability ideas that we've been promoting here. But yeah, without a doubt, there's some pieces that are not complete yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer by any means, but I was a little concerned with some of the language, but
But that's all been resolved, right? The couple things you've been concerned
Not all of it.
about? No,
not all.
but it will be,
I just don't want to get into a financial corner.
right, I agree. Is it worth holding off on this until that's sorted out, or are you not concerned?
I have some concerns. Do I have a lot of concerns? I guess there's the unknown in here, right? So the good news is, right, that the composter is paid for and will be delivered here. The good news, which I didn't know until I followed up with some of this, is that the container that they're going to put it in is also paid for. Prepping of the site won't be, isn't paid for. The electrical connection isn't paid for. The quarterly reporting, quarterly record keeping, we don't know who's going to do that and when. We do know that our students, you saw it here last meeting, are excited about participating in this activity. You do know that there's ideas, you saw it at the presentation, for putting together an independent nonprofit that could turn this into sort of an ongoing effort that could actually employ kids in the summer to take care of some things. Some of that has to be worked out. Who's going to work it out? I'm not 100% sure. There's going to be some legal responsibilities, making sure that those kinds of things get worked out. Right now, I can't tell you that that we don't have that budgeted to have those legal expenses paid for. We may still need to, however, if we do agree to this, we would probably need to contribute some of those legal consultation. So there are pieces like that. Again, I think it's a great project. I just don't want to suggest that it's at no cost. There will be some cost here. There are 2 donations that have been already received, total of $2,000, and that can help to mitigate some of those costs. So that's where it is.
Okay. Motion passes. Special education is on our consent agenda. Enter into the adjournment phase. Next meeting, date and location, June 18th, 2019, and July 2nd, 2019, both here in Lake Placid. Old agenda topics, St. Agnes School busing, make sure we get that on one of the year-end agendas. Addressing strategic goal 5, opportunity gap, which I've addressed in an email to see if perhaps that can be deferred to our goal-setting workshop. And then onboarding of new Board of Education members, I'm working on that, and I can conclude that anytime. I'm just waiting for the proper meeting to do that. So, any new agenda items that anybody would like on the agenda? If not, at this time, I'm going to propose that the board enter into executive session with a recommended action, a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing the superintendent's evaluation. If I may have a motion, please.
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff. Second.
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. All in favor? Are we voting? And the motion passes 5-0. Everybody will be excused except the board at this point.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Karen, do you want to lock and we'll just,
Yeah, we have to shuffle.
we should be done by 9:30.
Yes, perfect.
I'm walking out at 8.